So I'm going to walk through what are the distribution players, what are their properties. So they understand what the different options are and what really does what. And I find you go through this, you don't have to spend a lot of time beating up a 401k. You don't have to spend a lot of time helping them get comfortable with an annuity when they just recognize that these are all the products on the shelf. They're used to having choices. They just don't have the awareness of what their choices are. Like they know that there's choices when they go to Walmart or the grocery store, anywhere else, but they don't understand what the choices are in this marketplace. So that's our role, is educating them on that. So who are the players? Number one, let's talk about tax-deferred qualified plans. And here's what I would tell somebody, right? Tax-deferred qualified plans, the best accumulator of wealth. Why are they the best accumulator of wealth? Well, I can do that with anything. I can do that with like a savings account. That's not it. Whole life. Not as good of an accumulator as this. I can do that. It's more systematic. Go ahead. Because the taxes are deferred, right? Like what could be better than from an accumulation-only standpoint, I get to look at my statement and see that I've never paid a dime in taxes. Taxes are the biggest eroder of wealth for most incomes, for most assets at the end of the day as they grow. So because every dollar has been deferred, they're a great accumulator of wealth. Like if you're off to the races and all you want to do is pass the halfway point of retirement and not worry about what happens after that, then you should just put all your money in a tax-deferred qualified plan. There's no better accumulator out there. But for most people, it's not just about accumulation. In fact, it's more about, that's supposed to be an R, guys. Start over here. There we go. It's more about distribution. And from a distribution planning standpoint, what we know to be true about a tax-deferred vehicle is the absolute worst distributor of wealth. The worst distribution tool available. Why is it the worst distribution tool available? Because it's already up there, right? Because of the taxes, right? Because of the tax deferral. So it's not a secret that that's true. It's also the worst legacy tool. Why is $1 million of the qualified plan worse than $1 million in my Fidelity brokerage account where I own a bunch of IBM that I bought 50 years ago? Why is it worse from a legacy standpoint? Well, let's just say that I got $1 million in each the day that I die. Why do I feel better? You're going to pay the taxes on your tax-deferred qualified plan, but on your IBM, that's going to roll over and then become the basis for the job. Good. So everything else, like every other asset in the world, either passes tax-free or it gets a stepped-up basis. Whatever the value is the day that that person dies, that's the new tax basis when it rolls over to the next person. So from a legacy standpoint, there's no step-up, right? There's no escaping the tax. Every penny of that gets passed on is still going to be taxable. Somebody, someday, is going to pay the government their taxes. There's a huge tax break on non-qualified assets. They get a step up. Annuities and life insurance can pass tax-free. Maybe you're coming to this, but don't you have to pull it out by a certain age too? You guys start distribution. So, and if you're not. Good. So you've got restrictive, right? Restrictive distribution rules. Think RMDs. Right? Absolutely. So just less flexibility inherently. It's not to say that these are bad. They're not bad. These are just some of the things that it doesn't do very well. So we want to be able to complement and have other things perform in these areas. The other thing we've got to always keep in mind is that everybody you talk to, who you're approaching, like Dan goes and talks to a guy that's 50 years old, he's already got money in his qualified plan. So there's no undoing that. We're not coming to the table to say, gosh, get rid of that stuff. We're coming to the table to say, let's help you maximize it, right? What's the highest and best use of the qualified plan? What's the highest and best use of some of these other tools? So let's go through and let's name out the other players here, and you'll see the story, the strategy start to take shape. Non-qualified investments. It's an excellent distributor of wealth. Why? Why is it such a great distributor of wealth, non-qualified investments? It's highly tax advantaged, right? So some of the money that comes back to you, you've already been taxed on, and therefore you don't have to be taxed again. So it comes to you tax-free. It's a return of basis. And then it can be managed very tax efficiently, right? So you can basically have a tax-advantaged bucket rather than tax-deferred. It can be highly, highly efficient in distribution. It's a good legacy tool. Which passes better, $1 million of cash value or $1 million in non-qualified investments? Which passes better? Like, which would you rather get if you're the inheritor? Why would you rather have the non-qualified? So let me say the choices one more time. Okay, right? So I got $1 million of non-qualified investments or $1 million in cash value. They're both equal assets in the fact that they're $1 million. At death, if you're the inheritor, which would you rather have? Which would you rather be the beneficiary of? Why the cash value, Lee? Tax-free. Do they pass cash value on tax-free? Yeah. You get the death benefit, right? Yeah. So from an asset standpoint, I would say non-qualified assets are a good legacy tool. Life insurance is the best legacy tool. Cash value is not what you get at death. You get a leveraged legacy. You get the death benefit. So if you have $1 million in cash value, then you got 1.3, 1.5, maybe 2 in death benefit. That's what's coming to you. It's coming tax-free, just like maybe the non-qualified investments can feel tax-free. You're getting more from it. Does that make sense? So the qualified plan, from a legacy standpoint, the worst, right? Very poor. Non-qualified, good. You get a step up. Every dollar that's in there comes to you. You don't have to be taxed on it. Life insurance, even better, because not only do you get all of it tax-free, but you get more than what's stated in the asset value, the cash value. You get the death benefit. So that's a powerful tool, right? We're just trying to help people understand from a legacy standpoint, which is part of what this is about. There are different players on the field here.
Wouldn't you also say that there's less market risk with life insurance because you're getting a check from the insurance company, whether it's cash value or death benefit, you're getting actual cash. You don't have to figure out, what do I do with it?
Absolutely, absolutely. The point I was making with that story, though, is that you have leverage, right? Because you have a death benefit, right, with the life insurance versus just passing on the asset and getting it tax-free. Risk is inherent in both these first two buckets. Should have said that already, right? Risk is one of the downsides. Risk is one of the things that we've got to manage, right? Manage in these buckets, the first two players listed here. Moving on, right? Moving on.
Neil?
Yes?
How about liquidity?
Francis, I love it. Liquidity, right? So liquidity, again, let's give these guys, from a grade standpoint, I would say that they are a good source of liquidity, but not the best source of liquidity. Certainly they're better than the worst source of liquidity, which is the qualified plan. Oftentimes, if I need liquid assets, I can tap into this bucket, and I can do so by incurring very little tax. Really, the bigger concern usually is maybe some tax, maybe a capital gain to pay. Maybe it's not the right time to take money out because of the risk factor, because of the fact that there's volatility still in this bucket. It's still a pretty good source of liquidity, right? But there are better sources of liquidity. So thank you, Francis. That's a point not to be overlooked. Moving on, bucket number 3 to choose from or asset or tool or player number 3 to choose from. Let's talk 3A, variable annuity. So with the variable annuity, granted, the variable annuity could be qualified, all tax deferred, or it could be non-qualified, right? But in general, it's an excellent distributor of wealth. And I would say it's a good legacy tool, or it can be, right? Let's call it maybe good or fair. You got to pay a little extra, but you can, if you want legacy from this, you can engineer it to do that in a highly efficient way, right? Highly efficient. depending on the type of account it is in the variable annuity. So it has that capability, but really what it does, it provides guaranteed income for life. With the ability to participate in the market.
And what age do you usually got about that about having life insurance for them?
So Jack's asking the what age question. I will tell you this for the variable annuity, Jack. And this, again, is something that not every other company out there necessarily adheres to. But a variable annuity is an expensive thing. Fees are high, right? It does something that is well worth the fees. But you better not be paying those fees unless you intend to use the thing that it provides relatively soon. So here's what I would say. This is my philosophy around it, and you can ask Ernie about this if you disagree with me. I think that he and I are on the same page. At least for the types of variable annuities that we have access to with living benefits that are designed to provide guaranteed income at a certain point in time, I really wouldn't be having a conversation with someone. If they're going to retire by, say, 65 as our hypothetical age, I would never be talking to someone about doing this until they're about 15 years out or sooner. So at the youngest, I would say somewhere in the 50 range. Because what I'm thinking is like a target 250 that's going to be 2.5 times the present value when I invest it 15 years down the road at age 65. If I did it at, say, 45 or 40, right, the 15 years isn't such a big deal anymore, and I've stopped getting the guaranteed accumulation, but I'm still paying the fees. I'm not taking the income. So it tends to not be as efficient as productive if I do it too soon. Does that answer your question, Jack? That's one of the things I'm looking for, right? You hit 50 and above, and this is a great option for a lot of people, right? There's no downside risk, but we can still participate in the market. It's got a guaranteed floor. It can't be below a certain level from an income standpoint. And the income, once it's turned on, guaranteed for life. So that's a beautiful thing, right? It does something those other tools don't do. Surely there's a place for this in every distribution plan. And then 3B is a fixed annuity. And specifically what we'll mention here is a SPIA, right, or single premium immediate annuity. In other words, I take money today, I take it to the insurance company, I buy the annuity, they take the asset and then guarantee me a stream of income for the rest of my life. So it's an excellent distributor. It, I would say, has, well, let's just talk legacy because we've done that second everywhere else. It's a pretty poor legacy tool. You have options, right? You have options where, I shouldn't say totally poor, right? From a surviving spouse standpoint, it can be very good because it's very easy to do a joint 100% survivor option. From a legacy to the next generation standpoint, it's a pretty poor tool. Basically what you can do is guarantee a period certain, life only with a certain number of years guaranteed. It's really not designed to do that, right? Somebody wants to maximize legacy, this is not the tool for them. If they want to maximize income, this is about as good as it gets, right? If they want to have guaranteed income, then this is about as good as it gets. So there's no ability to participate in the market, right? There's no deferral here. What you have, though, is guaranteed income for life. And usually the payout rate is going to be higher than the payout rate on, say, a variable annuity in terms of the guaranteed withdrawal. The reason that it's so high, the reason it's higher than the payout you get on anything else is you are leveraging something called mortality credits. The older you get, the higher the payout. So for our 65-year-old couple here, they should be able to do a joint 100% survivor on a variable annuity, in 10 years that has a roughly 6 to 7% payout on whatever amount of dollars they put in. Whereas the variable annuity, if they did that today on whatever the draw base ends up being at 65, or say the target 250, they might be looking at like a 4% guaranteed payout for life, right? Could be higher. It could be 4% on a much higher number because they have the ability to participate in the market. So just two different approaches to creating guaranteed income for life and two different risks that they're trying to combat, right? two very, very important tools, and we're just trying to help someone understand. I find often people just don't know what an annuity is. They certainly don't know the difference between variable and fixed. You're just introducing the roster to them, right? Question on the phone?
Neil?
Yes.
This is John. Because the FIA is so interest sensitive, because it depends on the underlying investment that the Guardian has available to them at the time, this is an example of as interest rates increase in the future, since we're at a 40-year low in interest rates, FIAs will become even more attractive because of the income they'll be able to distribute because of the increased interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So interest rates will become better as interest rates increase. That's to John's point, that's especially true for period certain, which are exclusively interest rate products. If you go look at a period certain payout right now, it's close to 1 or 0, somewhere between 1 and 0, so it's not very high. Even today, though, right? Like to John's point, today a SPIA is for a life-only annuity or a joint life annuity, an excellent payout, 67%. Right? Even at a terrible interest rate environment, it's only going to get better. Right? Only going to get better. So a very good point. We are, through distribution planning, we're positioning our clients to take advantage of some of these trends, some of these economic factors, because we have not all our eggs in one basket. And then the last player that we'll mention, life insurance. Permanent life insurance, and in this case, we're really going to focus on whole life. I really don't consider a UL or a VUL to be a distribution planning tool, except for some very niche scenarios, because they don't have all the properties that we're about to list, right? So life insurance is an excellent distributor of wealth. And here, where we're going to say, we're going to have this little caveat, especially during the second half or the later phases of distribution. So especially in late distribution. So the mortality credits are really working the most to your advantage. It is the absolute best legacy tool, most efficient way to deliver a legacy to a surviving spouse or whoever or whatever that there is out there in the marketplace. It has the ability actually to guarantee income. Right? Like, this is something we rarely talk about in trainings. I talk about this to clients all the time because they say things like, well, what if, the husband says, what if we buy this policy on me? Because I'm a little older and I'm male. And what if my wife predeceases me? And I'm 80 years old or 85 years old and I got this big life insurance policy and, I just don't care about those kids anymore. Like, they're okay. What if that happens? Well, you can annuitize the cash value of the life insurance policy and create a huge amount of income for the rest of your life, right? You're already there at the insurance company. It's literally like going to the next teller window, and you can just get this guaranteed payout. You can run the quote for that when you run the illustration at the sale of the whole life policy. So it has a lever to pull no matter what the need is. Income, pull that lever, get the payout. Legacy, pull a different lever, right? You leverage the death benefit and use that to provide tax-free, guaranteed legacy. Liquidity. Having this conversation with Gary Lewis and a client on Thursday. From a liquidity standpoint, especially in distribution, life insurance, whole life insurance, is the best source of liquidity conceivable, right? It's income tax-free. It's risk-free. There's zero market timing issues. I can get the money whenever I want, and it has a rate of return that, like, even in today's environment, is 5 times what a savings account could do with no risk, right? It's the best source of liquidity imaginable, especially any time, right? Anytime, even during accumulation, but especially during early distribution, because that's a time when I need to be leaning on other things more heavily that I don't want to pull money from. Life insurance is just the best cushion, the best airbag I could possibly have against what could go wrong during those early years of retirement.